Shemai, croeso nôl, Blwyddyn Newydd Dda, a Happy New Year to you. Nearly forgot what that was then. Silliness. Welcome, croeso, to the first video back of 2022 of my Welsh learning adventure with Learn Cymraeg Pembrokeshire and Pure West Radio, Dysgu Cymraeg Sir Benfro. And to return to lessons, it was very fitting that we said Blwyddyn Newydd Dda to people, to my classmates, ffrindiau dosbarth, as I called it today. And we looked straight at un flwyddyn, dwy flynedd, and tair blynedd. So can you guess what they are referring to? Blwyddyn, blynedd, flwyddyn. It's all to do with years and how long that we've been doing things as well. So that was a nice short unit really to get back into the swing of things with Welsh. And there are mutations, as is commonplace now with Sylvain. So if you're thinking, oh, well, how am I supposed to remember this? You do just get used to them. You really do. But if you're struggling, I'm going to go through the list of the years because we went up to 10 years. And we also went through examples then as to how we used those years. So we've got un flwyddyn, or just blwyddyn, like Blwyddyn Newydd Dda, dwy flynedd, tair blynedd with a B, pedair blynedd with a B, pum mlynedd with a M, chwe blynedd, and then saith mlynedd, wyth mlynedd, naw mlynedd, deg mlynedd. You get the picture. So these mutations take place within the first 6 ways of saying 1 year, since 2 years, 3 years. And the way that we were taught to remember it, and Tony, I'm sure he won't mind me saying this, he kind of cottoned on to it way later. It was actually quite funny. But to remember those patterns and that soft mutation pattern, so think about the first letter. So we've got un flynedd, un flwyddyn, dwy flynedd, tair blynedd, pedair blynedd, pum mlynedd, and chwe blynedd, and then saith mlynedd, is fish fingers, baked beans, more bread. So that's how you remember the mutations at the beginning of the years that you're talking about. Fish fingers, baked beans, so more bread, b, and then mlynedd, ma. So that's how you remember it. And of course, because we're dealing in time, that's where we're using the dwy and the tair and the pedair. It's all to do with kind of the clocks and things like that. So that's where we use it. And in fact, when we get to 20, you don't say 20 mlynedd. You would use 20 mlynedd, similar to when we learned about the clock, which I'm pointing at in my room here. So that's your years if you're talking about the years. But then, what we're going to do with these years and what we're going to talk about? Well, you might want to say where you've lived for a certain number of years. So you can say, dwi'n byw yn yr ardal ers blwyddyn. So I have been living in the area, so yr ardal, in the area, ers blwyddyn, so since 1 year. And ers is a very important word. We're going to use it more. So ers and am, and then also putting in yn ôl, which means like in back essentially, but it means, or abac, it means ago. So that's, if you're using ers, you wouldn't necessarily use yn ôl, but if you're using am, then you might use yn ôl to round off the sentence. So using or looking at ers, you can say dwi'n byw yn yr ardal ers dwy flynedd. I've lived in the area since 2 years. So I've lived in the area for 2 years, and so on and so forth. So that was really good. And then to ask the question, so if someone asked you, ers faint rwy ti'n byw yn yr ardal, so for how long, for how many have you lived in the area? And you would reply with, dwi'n byw yn yr ardal ers tair blynedd, for example. I've lived in the area since 3 years. So that's where the ers is very important. So ers faint rwy ti'n dysgu Cymraeg. How long have you been learning Welsh? Dwi'n dysgu Cymraeg ers dwy flynedd. For 2 years. Is it 2 years now? It's definitely over 1. There you go. Yeah, so it's over 1. I'm going to say we're in for 2 years. There you go. And then we start looking at, so that's ers, so since. But if I asked you a question, how long did you study somewhere, and you're not currently still there, then that's a closed period of time. So this is where you would use am. So, yn ysgol gynradd, ro'n I yno am 7 mlynedd. So I was there for 7 years. So secondary school, ro'n I yno, great word, there. Ro'n I yno am 7 mlynedd. I was there for 7 years. And you got the am, not ers. If someone said, dysgu Cymraeg ar-lein, I might then say, you would then go to dwi'n dysgu Cymraeg, you go into the present tense, dwi'n dysgu Cymraeg ers 2 flynedd. Whereas here, if I'd finished learning, and this is a conversation that we're having in the future, I would say, ro'n i'n dysgu Cymraeg am 2 flynedd. So that's how you break that up, and that's how you can use the am and the ers. And hopefully I've given you a distinction there, because it took me a little while to actually get that into phrasing. And then you might be interested to say when you bought something. And then this is where past tense comes back in, which we did way back when in Mynediad, the entry level, because it's Sylfaen. But prynais I gar. So I bought. So prynais I, ces I got. Symudais I moved, and gadawais I left. Past tense, so you can say like what you did. So se I went. So se i'r Ffrainc 5 mlynedd yn ôl. I went to France 5 years ago, and this is where the yn ôl comes in, which I mentioned before. So, or ces I swydd newydd 5 mlynedd yn ôl. I got a new job 5 years ago, yn ôl, ago. And that's kind of the 3 aspects of time that we learnt on our return, which is very good. And then we looked at these open conversations that we've been having to do with gwaith, to do with work. And so we've come up with different words and phrases, and there's like some good questions on here as well that you can use. So beth oedd eich swydd gyntaf chi? What was your first job? So really good questions, because if we go on and do the examination of this, then we are going to be expected to talk about different topics. But as I mentioned in the video before Christmas, cyn Nadolig, we don't need to talk about all of them, because there's like over 20, I think. There's quite a few, but we get to pick and choose which ones we're going to talk about. It's just a short little question and answer session, really. And then I've already given you the kind of the help llaw throughout going through this. However, ar ôl 10, so after 10, it's easier to say the number. So 25 o flynyddoedd. So 25 o flynyddoedd. So 25 of years. So 37 o flynyddoedd. So that's what you can use once you get over 10. But before 10, you've got to be mindful of those fish fingers, baked beans, more bread, and then you might just go into o flynyddoedd. Of 30, like, yeah, what is that? 37 of years. Yeah, 37 of years. And when you use yn ôl, so ago, there's a treiglad meddal on the number when we use yn ôl. So 2 flynedd yn ôl. So that's something to be mindful of as well. It was nice to come back to that unit after Christmas. I know that we carried on quite late, and we're back on the first week of learning anyway. But the next unit is a revision unit. So it's kind of nice to ease back into it, because if I had to come back and do the card game, which of course I love, but look at all those questions. Lots of questions. So it's nice to warm up into it and kind of get your bearings a little bit. So diolch yn fawr iawn am Buddig a Richard. and I'll be back next week to go over what we're revising. Adolygu, is that right? Ymarfer, practice. One of them. Adolygu, yeah. Adolygu ac ymestyn. So that's what we're doing. And I'll be back again next week. I hope you're enjoying. I hope this year is great. And if you do want to sign up for New Welsh lessons, they have courses open to new learners. So sign up. Learn Cymraeg. Pembrokeshire is the group that you're looking for. And sign up. I don't think you'll regret it at all. Poblwch. Gwela i chi yr wythnos nesa. Hwyl am y tro. Bye for now.